Dr. Balthazar here. I've had a request for a while now to break down the movie The Neverending Story. And yeah, I do house calls, why not? Actually, the request is for the entire Neverending Story franchise, which is composed of a book from 1979, a relatively faithful adaptation of its first half with a hit film in 1984, a loose adaptation of its second half with a box office flop in 1991, as well as a straight-to-DVD third film in 94, a single-season cartoon in 96, and a single-season live-action show in 2002, which you could say were more inspired by the novel than based upon it. Those last three are like Amazon's Rings of Power. If they knew the book existed, they found any attempt to read it to be futile, since the sentence lengths and word complexities are geared towards 14-year-olds, and Amazon doesn't employ anyone that can read at that level. Anyway, the full franchise is more bullshit than I'm willing to take on my days off, but I will do a two-part video series looking at the context, storyline, characters, world-building, and themes of the first two Neverending Story movies, and the book they're based upon. If you're coming aboard this fantastic voyage, thanks for your time. Like, subscribe, comment, share, dislike, block, abuse the broken reporting system. I don't know, whatever kind of interaction of buttons makes you happy if buttons are your thing. For context, let's start with the novel. In 1979, a German author of fantasy and children's fiction named Michael Ende published The Neverending Story, or Die unendliche Geschichte?
Die unendliche Geschichte.
Motherfuck, not even remotely close, which was translated into English in 1983. It didn't catch on with British or American audiences on release, but after the success of the 1984 film, it exploded in popularity, getting translated into 34 more languages and selling over 8 million copies worldwide. So one might think the author would be pleased as punch with the global promotion of his novel, which never would have happened without the movie. But coins have two sides, so let's put a pin in that for now. Bavaria Studios in Munich produced the film on a budget of $27 million US. Wolfgang Petersen of Das Boot and Troy fame directed and co-wrote the screenplay along with Ende. And Warner Brothers picked it up for distribution, where it brought home about $20 million in Germany, $20 million in the US, and another $60 million worldwide, although I've seen that last number disputed. But whatever the fact of the matter, it made money, and was seen by many who enjoyed it at the time. The storyline opens of young Bastian Balthazar Bucks, no relation, having breakfast with his dad, whose morning fare is a combination of orange juice and a raw egg mixed in a blender. What the fuck did I just see? That is fucking gross, dude. Do they do that in Germany? Don't do that in Germany, or anywhere else. Good God, and salmonella. Bastian Booger's dad drops some clunky exposition so we know his mom is dead. Ugh, that is so gross, Jesus Christ. And he's something of a dreamer with his head in the clouds. And a pussy. Bastian Booger then gets chased down by some bullies who give him the Jerome treatment for all of you Purple Rain fans out there.
Jerome.
Let go of me, you bigot! More!
They have an important question for him after he gets out of the trash.
Hey man, who said you can get out the garbage?
And he runs like a bitch and hides out in a bookstore where he snatches a copy of the Die
unendliche Geschichte.
Eat a dick, Google Translate.
Iss einen Schwanz.
I'm going to lose my shit today. I can already feel it. Anyway, the owner of the bookstore kind of dares little prick to steal the book by using the classic cigarettes appeal. These are for you when you're older. They're far too hardcore for you now. You just couldn't handle how awesome these are since you're too young. Reverse psychology has a proven track record, you know. So he takes the bait and grabs the book, but leaves a note that he'll return it, since the movie has established he's a bit annoying, a bit of an imbecile, and a bit of a coward. But they realize making him too unlikable by committing petty larceny may convince audiences he belongs back in that dumpster. He hides out in the school attic and starts reading the book, where he shifts into the role of narrator/surrogate audience for someone else's adventure. So we're transported into the story of the book, which takes place in the land of Fantasia, an imaginary land where any fanciful thing can be imagined exists. The central conflict is introduced, something called the Nothing is making things disappear, and people are headed to an ivory tower where an empress hopefully has the answer to that problem. This would be the first issue with what we can broadly call visual literacy in film. In the book, the Nothing is just that. It's an absence of any object, shape, color, etc. It can't even be described as a black spot, since that would be something rather than nothing. This concept can be comprehended in the mind's eye in the medium of a book, but a motion picture is an illusion of movement created by showing pictures. So you have to put something in the picture. The filmmakers go with a dark storm, upending trees and whatnot, which is fine. It's that or we're into that dumb as fuck Cloverfield franchise concept, where the camera doesn't let you see what the characters see, which gets old really fast. The shithole the Empress lives in is showcased along with the freaky as fuck citizenry, and we find out the Empress's healthy nightlife has finally caught up with her. She's dying, and it's all tied up with the Nothing. But a hero named Atreyu can save the day, so they send him out on a quest to do that shit with a god-in-the-box invincibility necklace called Orin and a horse named Artax. Atreyu Orin Artax, in a story read by Bastian Balthazar Bucks from a book he stole from Carl Conrad Coriander. I'm going to take another deep breath and remind myself it's written as a children's story. We don't have an antagonist yet, so a giant wolf is introduced to hunt down our young hero, who montages his way around Fantasia until he ends up in the Swamp of Sadness. His horse doesn't have a God-in-the-box invincibility necklace, so it gets sad, which means it's going to sink into the swamp and die. The filmmakers made a point of keeping the powers of the necklace vague, so the audience doesn't know it makes Atreyu unkillable, which was a good choice because if that was made clear, there would be no sense of peril to anything that comes his way. So the scene plays like the horse is just giving up while Atreyu is hanging tough. Which works, although it's a pretty drawn-out death scene for a movie intended for small children, with a lot of screaming and pleading. The mood is lightened by Bash and Booger crying like a bitch, which is good for a laugh. Then Atreyu learns from a giant turtle that he can complete his quest if he asks the Southern Oracle what to do. But she's too far away to get to. But lucky for him, a flying dragon dog thing is there to pick him up and bring him to the Southern Oracle. And here we have to bring some of the source material into the mix. The word contrivance is defined as an artificial arrangement or development, and it's often used in film to point out plot holes and conveniences that are at best lazy writing. Michael Enda's book is a children's story, so in reading it you have to keep that in mind and shrug at many things while saying to yourself, it's just a children's story, don't ask too many questions. But his writing is a never-ending contrivances story. Nothing that happens to anyone at any time is given any logical consideration related to anything that has previously happened, and nothing that is true for 1 minute needs to be true the next. For example, Atreyu needs to get to the Southern Oracle. He runs into a poisonous monster, but lucky for him, he has the immortal amulet and he can't die from poison. But the monster poisons him anyway, so he'll die even though he still has the immortal amulet on. But lucky for him that it did, because the poison also lets him teleport to the Oracle. And lucky for him that he did, because an alchemist is standing at that exact spot at that exact moment who can cure any poison. But he can't get to the Oracle because there's 3 magic gates that can't be opened. But lucky for him, the alchemist has a husband who knows how to pass the 3 magical gates. It goes on like this for 400 pages. Whatever needs to happen next just happens. So the movie is handicapped by source material that is a contrivance machine. Anyway, we spend some quality time getting to know Falkor the Luck Dragon. Why he isn't allowed within 500 feet of a school isn't directly stated, but I think we can connect the dots.
I like children. That's so good.
And he gets past some very nipply guards to a very nipply Southern Oracle that totally isn't the same pair of nipply props painted blue. In the book, the Southern Oracle doesn't have a pair of hot bodies. She doesn't have a body at all. She's a song that can only speak and hear in A-B-A-B rhyme scheme. Kind of like that scene in the Marvels where people can only speak and hear in song that we all love so much. So I'm giving a pass on reusing the Golden Nipple Sisters here. Special effects-laden films pressure budgets at the best of times, and you can tell the filmmakers became strapped for cash early on, as a lot of things just don't look good then or now. Anyway, Nipply McNippleton tells him the Empress needs a new name, and only a human from outside of Fantasia can give it to her. They've been teasing a connection between Atreyu and Bash and Booger throughout the movie, so now we see where all that is headed. Atreyu and Falkor then montage their way through Fantasia with some killer special effects and 80s beats. They're trying to get to the boundaries of Fantasia, but Fantasia has no boundaries. In the book, they have this really great moment where Falkor says, I think we should turn around and head back to the Ivory Tower. To which Atreyu replies, I don't understand what you mean. Can you explain? And Falkor just repeats the same thing he just said. Maybe there was an issue with the German to English translation.
Oder vielleicht war der Autor ein Schwachkopf.
Also a distinct possibility. Okay, Google, we're finally getting on the same page here. Atreyu falls off his flying pound puppy and loses the immortality necklace, but we don't feel any greater sense of danger because we didn't know the necklace made him unkillable to begin with. He finds himself in a ruin of ancient murals showing his recent adventures, lending a sense of predetermination to the quest. And he has a conversation with the giant wolf antagonist who's been absent for most of his journey, who lays out some world building I'll get to later. They have a fight that ends instantly when the gigantic predator leaps directly into a rock knife and dies. The flying pound puppy picks up Atreyu as the nothing closes in, and they head back to the Empress's shithole for a confab, which is all that's left of Fantasia at this point. The Empress is revealed to be a very confused-looking child, and they set up the climactic moment where Bash and Booger has to give the Empress a new name while doing some fourth-wall-breaking meta bullshit about how we as the audience are a part of the never-ending story, since we're experiencing Bash and Booger's story, who's a part of the never-ending story because he's experiencing Atreyu's story. Atreyu yells a lot, and the Empress gets real passive-aggressive with Bash and giving her a new name. The scene actually plays out really well. It's the right balance of mounting tension and audience frustration waiting for Bastion to grow a pair. Whereas in the book, this went on for about 25 pages and was like, Jesus fucking Christ, dude. You aren't being asked for that much here. Just say a name and let's get on with it. In the movie, he has to scream the name out a window rather than just whisper it under his breath. But he overcomes his self-doubts and reservations, the general awkwardness of such a thing, runs up to the window and screams,
Dickus.
Pussy galore.
McLovin?
Homer Pyle.
Baby.
You dumb fuck!
You fat fuck.
No, he screams. Come again? Maybe we need to slow this down a bit, get some lip reading involved. Alright then, good call, big guy. Little Puke is then transported into Fantasia to talk shop with Empress Monkeybone. She thanks him for the new name and sentences him to death. Or should have anyway. Actually, she rewards him with the power to make endless wishes come true. His first wish is for his mother to still be alive. Oh wait, no it isn't. It's to be able to fly around on the Pound Puppy. They montage through Fantasia to reassure the audience that the imaginary characters that aren't real are still alive or back from the dead. He then uses his second wish to bring his mother back. Oh wait, no he doesn't. He instead decides to bring Falkor into the real world to torment the bullies that fucked with him at the start of the film, showing he's no better than they, and the only reason he hasn't revealed himself to be a terrible human being before was he didn't have the power to harm others until now. Interesting twist on the hero's journey. He really learned a lot through Trejo's travels. Roll credits, rock 80s beats. It is a catchy 80s craptastic tune. Michael Endo was given a private screening before the movie released and went apeshit, claiming everyone had lied to him and changed everything he and the director worked on in pre-production, but I'm calling bullshit on that one. I read his stupid fucking book before making this video, and any claim that his work had depth, while this movie was, as he put it, a gigantic melodrama of quiche, commerce, plush, and plastic, is absurd. Even for a children's book, his work is astonishingly superficial and contrived. The only meaningful thing in the movie that didn't appear in the book was the badly conceived final scene that tries to give Bastian a hero moment by getting over on the bullies. Nothing else was grossly distorted or transformed to any meaningful degree. We're back to the topic of visual literacy in film. It's one thing to read something on a page and picture it the way you would like it to be. It's another to be able to read something and consider a range of ways it might be portrayed depending on the mood set by lighting, camera angles, sound, editing, and everything else. The most famous example I can think of is the movie Grapes of Wrath, in which the author of the novel, John Steinbeck, reviewed the script before John Ford made the movie, so nothing should have come as a surprise to him. But he had no idea the searing bitterness of his novel could be replaced by something of a celebratory, they can't whip the American spirit, by subtle decisions related to presentation, so he was stunned when he saw it on the screen. He read what was there, but he couldn't see it in his mind's eye. Endo was no different with the never-ending story. For characters in the book, Bastian was fat, weak, cowardly, and dumb. In the movie, he's not fat, otherwise he's the same. Between being ideal prey for bullies and losing his mom, you'd think he'd elicit sympathy from the audience, but not really, to be honest. The film finishes at the midway point of the book, which makes it tricky to judge Bastian as a character, since the first half of the book is more of a Treyu story while the second is Bastian's. But they do give him something of a vicarious hero's journey in the movie, which leaves him different at the end compared to the beginning. Early on, he's told he needs to stop being such a dreamer and become more of a realist, which he accepts. He learns the importance of both determination and imagination through experiencing Atreyu's quest. He takes a chance and trusts in the improbable by giving Monkeybone Magic Pump her name. And he showcases a poorly considered version of standing up for himself at the end. So it's something of a character arc along the lines of a hero's journey, where he starts out in a place as one thing and returns to it changed by his experiences, but okay, maybe I'm reaching a bit. In the book, Atreyu has green skin and blue-black hair, that's repeated many times, and is a stick figure of a character. He's brave and determined as a role model for Bastian to aspire to, and he does his best to save the day because that's what heroes do. Although he's wearing an immortality necklace with God-in-the-Box powers, and he literally had the ability to feel fear removed in a chapter early on. So is it that hard to be brave and determined under those conditions? The film doesn't paint the kid green or highlight plot devices that make him undeserving of credit for braving the dangers of the quest, but there's no real character development going on here. As an aside, during production, the kid playing Atreyu was thrown from the horse and stomped on, pulled into the mire by the elevator they built to lower the miserable beast into the swamp, and nearly drowned. And when the robotic wolf Muppet thing was thrown on him during their fight, it nearly put out his eye. Tough kid. Way to play like a champion. In the book, Falkor isn't explicitly described, but it seems pretty obvious he's modeled on a Chinese dragon. Where they got the dog look from, my guess is still Pound Puppies. They were a hot seller in the mid-'80s. In the book, Empress Monkeybone Magic Pump is an all-knowing god allegory, and the film didn't change much there besides some cosmetics with her look. Atreyu's horse Artax talks in the book, which would have made the death scene that much more horrifying for a viewing audience of children, but otherwise the same. These aren't characters with any depth, just functions of plot with a fantastic look that makes more sense in the imagination than on screen. Enda freaked the fuck out, because Bastian wasn't fat, Atreyu's skin wasn't green, Falkor looked like a dog, and Monkeybone didn't have golden eyes and silver hair. Those are the petty, superficial complaints of someone who believed the filmmakers had an obligation to make an exact replica of his piece-of-shit book, which they did not. For world building, the Wolfman Atreyu scene I referenced earlier did a serviceable job of clarifying the world building rules for the audience. People in the real world imagine shit, it becomes real in Fantasia. People are becoming more cynical and losing their childlike exuberance for life, love, creativity, and so on, so the nothing is spreading and Fantasia is fading. The link between Fantasia and the real world is simple and understandable. Imagination fills this imaginary world with life. In the book, Fantasia isn't an imaginary place. It's a tangible world independent of our own. People from Fantasia can and do jump into the nothing, which transports them into our world and transforms them into an incorporeal form as lies that people deceive themselves with. But later on, the author realized that was fucking stupid and reframed it as, if people lie, that pulls something or someone out of Fantasia and they become a manifestation of that lie. Except when he felt like going back to the first idea, which happens on a regular basis. What happens on one page doesn't create any binding rules that govern the world on any other page. The Southern Oracle is far away, then distance has no meaning, so it's not. The Immortality Necklace makes Atreyu unkillable, unless it doesn't. On and on. A lightning rod for Enda's rage at the movie was the final scene of Falkor tormenting the bullies, which he claimed broke the world-building rules as he established them, because something from Fantasia came to Earth in a tangible form. Except in the book, when Atreyu and the wolf have their world-building conversation, he outlines how the wolf and many other creatures can and do travel between the two worlds. So there are no rules here. We're back in Nam.
Smokey, this is not Nam, this is bowling. There are rules.
Personally, I don't like the final scene, but I get the idea. The filmmakers wanted to finish with a bang and give Bastian a hero moment. When Steven Spielberg was making Jaws, he had the author of the novel, Peter Benchley, on set, and when they were prepping for the big finale with the shark exploding, Benchley sought out Spielberg to argue how unrealistic such a thing was. And according to the author, the typically polite and mild-mannered director cut him off and said something to the effect of, "I don't give a fuck! I'm blowing the fucking shark up." And when Benchley saw it on the screen, he got it. Yeah, it's not believable, but it's the perfect ending. It's a thrill. And that's what the audience needed at the end of that movie to go home happy. Wolfgang Peterson and company were going for that effect. And while I think they missed the mark, the intent makes sense. For themes, there's the standard thematic fare for children's movies. You're important, even if you're just a kid. Everyone should hold on to their sense of youthful exuberance and imagination and not become old and cynical. That kind of thing. There's a bit of a theme related to finding your courage, taking chances, and standing up for yourself, which isn't well done. But I'll give the filmmakers credit for changing the means by which Bastian gave the Empress her name. Most of us go through life not wanting to look like idiots, even in front of perfect strangers. Don't believe me? Oh, open your window. Scream the words Monkey Bone Magic Pump. In the book, all Bastian Booger has to do is whisper a name under his breath. But the little fucker won't do it, so it drags on and on until finally, the Empress creates a Doctor Strange infinite time loop in which he and everyone in Fantasia are trapped for all of eternity until he whispers the fucking name. Hence the never-ending story. It never ends until the fat kid is willing to make the smallest contribution imaginable. What theme that represented to the author and why he thought it offered something insightful, I can only guess at, but he seemed to connect it to the notion that people who are about to get something they want can have more complex emotions than just joy at the experience. Which isn't wrong, but that bullshit doesn't work as a climactic finish to a fantasy adventure film. I don't think it contributed much as a passing thought in a children's book either. But Enda's writing is shit, and without this movie, you can take several zeros off the bottom line of his novel's profit margins. I get the argument that he felt his work was being distorted by the film, and I have a degree of sympathy for him there. But he didn't demand creative control, or a position as executive producer in exchange for the $50K they paid him for the rights of the book. And to be honest, I can't easily recall a book I disliked as much as The Neverending Story. It's not charming, it's not fun, and it doesn't translate into the medium of film with a natural ease. It's a scattering of random, fantastic images joined by tedious dialogue and endless contrivance with unlikable characters and poorly considered themes. Sometimes filmmakers change things because they just aren't good. In conclusion, The Neverending Story takes a shockingly awful book built on fanciful imagination and endless contrivance and cleans it up into a version of a hero's journey for the narrator of the story, which sets up for a tricky sequel since the accepted main protagonist will now have to step aside for the narrator to be the main protagonist. And I'm not sure the audience was feeling him in that role back in the day. I was a part of the intended audience's age group at that time, and Bastian was universally disliked by me and my peers. We really did want to see him stuffed back into that dumpster, although maybe others at the time felt differently. But we'll never know, and none of that mattered anyway in 1984, since after the author had his meltdowns, demanding they change everything to be exactly the same as his shitty book, demanding his name be removed from the film, then demanding they change the title of the movie, he sued to try to nullify the contract that gave the filmmakers the rights to the book, which tied up production on the sequel for a good 6 years. But we'll get to the sequel in my next video. Anyway, if you're in the mood for a movie that is considerably better than the book it's based upon, my prescription would be The Princess Bride, Jaws, and Fight Club. I'm Dr. Balthazar. Like what you like, don't what you don't. It's all your call, Kemosabe. Take it easy, everyone.